Welcome everyone to another episode of Raw Sport. My name is Ahmed El Houli. I am your host, and as always, every week my co-host is Mr. Tony Sheehan. Welcome to the show, buddy. How are you?
Ahmed, another great Tuesday morning. Looking forward to another big episode of Raw Sports.
Absolutely, buddy. First up, the Commonwealth Games fallout. The decision that shocked the nation, shocked the whole Commonwealth. What is going on, Tony?
Well, Ahmed, we wish we knew. I mean, Premier Daniel Andrews has made a monumental mistake here. He hasn't read the room. And the other thing is, I think he's lost a lot of trust with his constituents, being not only Victorians, but the rest of the country and also the Commonwealth. He forecast a $6 to $7 billion loss by not taking the Commonwealth Games, which has been refuted by Games officials who have now been gagged and aren't allowed to speak publicly on the matter. So this decision is shrouded in secrecy, and I don't know where it leaves us. I don't think anybody has picked up the Games. Correct me if I'm wrong, but Australia certainly has refused to take up the slack where Victoria has left it.
Absolutely. And now we find ourselves in a position where how do other big events trust us, right? How do you pull out on the second biggest event in our country's existence, literally? Like the Commonwealth Games after the Olympics is the second biggest event that we have, that we participate in.
I disagree, but yeah, go on.
The futures and the dreams of so many young athletes who've been working so hard, they use the Commonwealth Games as a platform to move into the Olympics, as a platform to be recognized, a platform to prepare themselves for the bigger games, right? So now we have so many athletes who've been training so hard for so long in preparation for these games, who are going to be absolutely heartbroken, disheartened, and shattered. And if the games don't go ahead, they're gonna have. I've had to work for 4 years for nothing.
Yeah. Look, it is shocking, and the athletes, in the Commonwealth Games athletes, this is a rare opportunity for them, which comes around every 4 years, which is the gap year for the Olympics. As you said, it's a lead-in race for the greater games of the Olympics. So it's for the Commonwealth athletes to test themselves against those in the Commonwealth, obviously, hence the name the Commonwealth Games. But I think a lot of people are wondering, athletes included, as to why. Now, Daniel Andrews has turned around and said it was cost ineffective, which I think a lot of people agree with, but they think it was a political stunt based on a falsehood when he came in and said it will be the regional games with a lot of events held in regional Victoria, only for him to, a week ago, cancel it, stating a financial implication, but nobody believes that.
So you're basically saying he promised regional Victoria all this economic revenue and value and upside, and now that he's won the election, he's saying F you, basically.
Well, that's the appearance, yes. I mean, I don't think anybody knows what's going through the Premier's mind, but it certainly left a foul taste in the mouths of many. And now a lot of other sports are actually quite anxious as to the future, the international future of the sports held in Victoria. Now, we know the AFL is safe because it brings such an economic benefit to the states, and it's the number one sport in Australia. But is the Formula One Grand Prix, is that in jeopardy? Is the Australian Open in jeopardy from other states pinching it? A lot of other sports now are wondering about the immediate future of their sport in Victoria.
Absolutely. There's a lot of uncertainty at the moment. People are doing it very tough. And once again, how can your costings be so far off? I mean, how can you 1 year ago say yes, and now a year down the track say, oh, it's going to cost us too much? It's just that it's literally the state is in shambles. But anyway, I'm not going to harp on about that.
The figures don't add up.
Absolutely. And you said it's not the second biggest event for our country. What is?
Well, in terms of ratings and investment and involvement. I mean, it could be the NRL State of Origin, the AFL Grand Final, it could be the Australian Tennis Open, the Formula One Grand Prix. Not enough people care about the Commonwealth Games, and ratings show this.
Solid point. There you go. Oh, all right, moving on. Bulldogs versus Giants. You got two of the biggest players in the game squaring off, and guess where they're playing? In Ballarat.
Exactly. So just for our fans, we're talking about the Western Bulldogs and the GWS Giants in the AFL, and they have the Bulldogs sell a home game to Ballarat, I think, once or twice a year, and they thought they would be able to. Well, they have sold the game to Ballarat. It's the coldest place in Victoria, and now the Giants, who are vying to keep the 7th spot on the AFL ladder, have to go to Ballarat. Now, as we've discussed off camera, Ahmed, this is a huge game. And not only is it a huge game for the two sides, but it's probably the first and second best player in the AFL coming up against each other this Saturday at 1:45 with Marcus Bontempelli, the captain of the Western Bulldogs, versus his arch nemesis, Toby Green of the Greater Western Sydney Giants. This should be earmarked for Marvel Stadium or the MCG. Now, I know that Giants don't have a huge following, but considering where these two teams are placed on the ladder, it makes sense that the AFL would shift the game. There's a game in Geelong, but there's no game in Melbourne City this Saturday. So why not change it?
Will regular fans go just to watch those two square off?
I think if they do something about it in the next 24 hours and build the game up, of course. I mean, look, Greater Western Sydney Giants aren't a fashionable team, but they've got very good players, and this could be billed as a finals-defining game, which could shape the rest of the 8. I mean, this is huge, this game. And it's also Toby Green versus Marcus Bontempelli. I think it just has all the hallmarks to be a ratings success for either Seven or Fox and also the fans in Melbourne.
Does the AFL have a cultural problem where fans are so fixated by their teams only that they wouldn't go and watch these superstars square off?
Oh, I think a lot's got to do with the media. I think a lot of people are now going, and obviously this relates back to, no, I shouldn't say obvious, but my own opinion relates back to COVID, whereby people were forced into their homes for such a long period of time that people are now more inclined to go out and watch things that they hadn't previously seen, or be a theatre goer for sporting events that they would not normally have attended. And I think with the AFL's recent history of really good contests, particularly last week with Collingwood and Port Adelaide and Hawthorn and
Richmond. Hawthorn, yeah.
Yeah. And I think this could be billed as a really big game and a tough contest. The two teams dislike each other. There's a real underbelly of hatred between these two teams. And I think the media should build it up as much so that people, I think you might be able to get somewhere between 30 and 40,000 if they actually moved it to Marvel and MCG this week. And Ahmed, by extension, why wouldn't they be playing games at this time of year at the MCG when the finals are ostensibly played at the MCG, and that's where teams want to get the most practice?
It makes no sense playing in Ballarat this time of the year. Absolutely nothing.
Well, they are to hit and turn around and say, we'll pay for it.
Not only that, I mean, it's freezing in Ballarat, number one. It's a second-tier stadium. It's not made for the best athletes in our country. Like, let's be frank. Like, you play preseason games, yeah, okay. But you're playing regular home and away games in Ballarat.
It's a good VFL ground, not an AFL ground.
Exactly. So this is the point, though, right? If we consider ourselves this elite competition, we can't be playing in second-tier stadiums. It's as simple as that.
Yeah,
you have to give athletes the best.
Sorry? I totally agree. There's not even a grandstand.
Yeah, exactly. Like, what are you doing? I don't understand. You're receiving every single year billions of dollars in TV rights. You got the biggest brands working with you. You got the best athletes in the country, and you're getting them to play on a second tier ground in Ballarat because of some money. Either make the investment and build out a stadium, or don't play there at all. It's as simple as that, or only play preseason games.
I would 100%. Yeah, I would 100%. I agree with you. And
we have to start acting like the big boy league. We can't keep piss fighting around from these little stadiums like that gather around in Adelaide. You're playing, you got cows in the background. Stadiums were horrendous. The siren sounds like a local footy siren.
Yeah,
it's just not on.
Oh, I agree. And I think if the gather around, I think it had a huge upside for the state of South Australia. And some of the players I spoke to really enjoyed the country feel of the grounds where they played. I think it was Hawthorn versus the Giants. They liked that intimate feeling. But that's once a year. That they shouldn't be playing games at Ballarat. And the other thing is, the Giants and the Bulldogs, I think, would probably have to catch a bus from the centre of Melbourne, which is probably an hour and a half, cooped up on a bus on the day of the game. How does this equate to being a professional sport?
Not only that, they aren't like customized buses just for them. They're just regular coaches. Now, this is my problem. All over the world, the best teams have the best facilities. The best leagues have the best facilities, right? Why are we still doing what we're doing with these second-tier stadiums? I don't care if it's Adelaide. I don't care if it's Ballarat. You claim to be the best league in the country. You're earning billions of dollars a year. Invest in facilities. We don't have to watch players playing in a stadium like Ballarat or in some of those stadiums in gather round. If you want to host those games, you have to be ready to host those games. It shouldn't be a right for someone. You got to earn it, right? There has to be infrastructure that's invested into these facilities and these clubs to actually act like they are the elite.
I tell you took the words right out of my mouth. The only thing I will add to that is my criticisms of the NRL have been exactly that. If you guys want to be a serious competition in Australia, particularly the northern states, get rid of these suburban grounds and go into the city.
Or if you want to keep them, bring them up to scratch. Right. Which makes it almost impossible to be feasible because they cost so much to bloody run. So it's not about losing a suburbia feel or a country feel. No, it's not about that. If you want that feeling, go play country footy. This is the big time. This is the AFL. This is the NRL. The facilities have to match what you're receiving and the status and stage that you're performing at and receiving. You can't just act like, oh, we want that footy, we want that country feel, that move on. Nobody cares about emotions. Yes, traditions stand, but we got to bring things to a commercial level where they represent the value that's being sold to all these organizations and media networks.
Couldn't have said it better.
All right, enough of my rant. We can move on. Big news, I'd say, in the last few days. We have the Female World Cup, the Female Football World Cup in Australia and New Zealand. Australia's selling tickets. New Zealand's really struggling. Obviously, the Matildas are the Australian team. The best player in the world is Sam Kerr. She's part of the team. She hasn't been playing. She's got some sort of injury. Right? Some things have been slipped out during a press conference. Officials have turned around. They're causing a bit of a stir. They're scrambling to come up with some sort of response. I'll pass it on to you to go into more detail.
Well, as we know, Sam Kerr, as you so adequately described, Ahmed, Sam Kerr is the #1 female soccer player in the world. So for her to miss the World Cup is an enormous story. The Matildas player missed the first game against Ireland last week, and luckily the Aussies got through. And then to keep the fans up to date, there was a press conference yesterday in Queensland, and one of Sam Kerr's teammates has revealed to the media that Kerr has torn her calf. Now, that is probably the biggest revelation since games have started playing the last week in the World Cup. And in the wake of that press conference, the Australian officials have scrambled to turn around and dilute that comment from the Matilda's player about Sam Kerr's calf. They want to give the impression that Kerr could make a comeback if they get past Nigeria on Thursday night and continue in the World Cup. It makes sense to me, marketing purposes, ratings purposes, ticket sales. If the teammate is going to come out and with this revelation, I think you've got to turn around and give her some credit and be smart enough to manoeuvre around this rather than suppress her comments.
Exactly. I mean, give us something to talk about, or pivot, deflect.
Well, it's becoming embarrassing.
Move the conversation. Yeah, exactly.
She's torn her calf or she hasn't.
Don't worry, Football Australia's used to that, so it's all good there.
Well, they may be, but they're not used to actually dealing with media.
Yeah, they're used to being embarrassing with their decisions. So just throwing a bit of a dab there. But anyway, look, it is what it is. You're never going to get a straight answer. She probably is injured. And as you said, because of the marketing and monetary value that she brings, they're trying to hide it.
Well, there's no doubt she's injured, because when the national anthem was on last week, when they played Ireland, Sam Kerr was visibly distressed, arm in arm with her teammates on the sidelines. So she obviously wants to be there, and maybe there's a realisation that she may not get to play for the Matildas in this World Cup.
It would be a big loss to her, because it's her home country, on home soil. It wouldn't have been a better setting to try and win it. But, oh well, we'll just follow and see how things transpire, and we'll keep going. The most controversial sport in the world, boxing, had some more controversy on the weekend. Seems to be every time there's a boxing event, there's some sort of controversy. So Australian George Kambosis for Mr. Hughes. His full name is just slipped my mind, unfortunately. Apologies.
The English boxer.
Yeah, Mr. Hughes. His family name is Hughes. And I don't think I've seen a recent fight that's been more, how can I say this in the nicest way possible, that's been more talked about in negative fashion, saying Kambosis lost that fight, saying he shouldn't have won, so on and so on. Look, at the end of the day, a decision is a decision. So we can't really change much. But the public, some expert commentators, the boxing community as a whole is pretty disappointed. And anybody who watched that fight is disappointed too, because they believe boxing has failed them again. Right?
Is this a failure because of the scoring system, or because Kambosis isn't as good as what we thought?
It's a failure because Hughes has worked his butt off all his life for this moment, right, to rise and be a former lineal world champion, which would have been an absolutely groundbreaking win for him. It would have put him on the map, changed his life, changed his career. Now he's going to go back and he's going to continue to be a journeyman, right? So this is what it does. This is what people don't understand. They think, oh, yeah, it's just a decision. Who cares? Blah, blah, blah. But hang on a second. What about that guy who's been working his whole life for this moment? What about that guy, had he got this decision, it could have changed his life. It could have put him on the map. He could have welcomed him to the boxing world, right? What happens to him now? He's got to go back, put in another 12 weeks training camp, another 12 weeks of expenses, tens of thousands of dollars, and hope he gets a fight that can cover those expenses. Nobody sees that, right? It's just disgusting. It just keeps happening and happening and happening. And that's why my favorite entrepreneur, Dana White, is destroying this sport, taking over. Martial arts, nobody even knows what. If you go to any regular guy in the street, tell him what's MMA, he tells you, I don't know. You tell him UFC, oh yeah, UFC. It's taken over. People think MMA is UFC, right? So this guy is giving us the best fights, building brands, building profiles, and this sport's growing at a faster rate than anything. And boxing is on going completely the other way, run by dinosaurs and corrupt sharks.
Exactly. And I think you hit the nail on the head with corrupt sharks. The other thing is why people love UFC. It is too hard to rig. That's why the fans love it, because it's an honest contest. Whereas boxing, I think it's been shrouded in corruption for as long as people have been boxing.
100%. And what's happening now is the fans have had enough of it.
They have,
and we're seeing that because you can only milk the cow for so long before it dries up, and people are sick of being milked. These shit fights, excuse the language, have been like 99% of boxing fights in today's world have been subpar, like rubbish.
No, we'll go harder. If they're shit fights, say it. Go harder.
Yeah, shit fights. You'll be lucky to get one or two big fights a year that people wanted to see. And when they do put them on, they're 5 years too late, like Pacquiao and Mayweather, right? Yep. So that's why people are losing interest.
They are.
Because why would you stick around to see this star fight a journeyman and then fight another journeyman and another journeyman and another taxi driver and then another taco seller and it's just the same rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat, rinse, repeat. Who cares? Move on.
It's really disappointing because people like you and I who have invested in the sport for such a long period of time can see through the trees, whereas a lot of fans really want to be able to trust the judges, trust the fighters, trust the managers, trust the promoters. People just don't have that trust anymore like they used to. And you and I, who have been able to understand the trials and tribulations of boxing, are probably a little bit immune to it. It's just we are really disappointed and we're not sure how much of a future the sport has, and hence why the UFC is now a $5.5, $6 billion prospect and boxing is dying.
12. But anyway.
As in 12 billion?
Yeah.
Wow. And growing.
Yeah, because so just for context, for those that don't know, Endeavour, who were the guys that bought the UFC for $4 billion, have also bought the WWE for $9 billion. So they bought the UFC in 2016. So now the UFC is worth $12 billion. The WWE they bought was worth $9 billion.
From Vince McMahon?
Sorry, mate?
From Vince McMahon.
They bought it from Vince McMahon, yes, for $9 billion. Ari Emanuel is the founder of Endeavour and current CEO. So now they've formed this super company that pretty much stands where they both stand underneath, and the value of that company is $21 to $22 billion. Right?
Do you know who Ari Emanuel is in Hollywood terms?
He's the king.
Yeah, but he started Endeavour, and that's who. Do you remember the show and Hollywood movie Entourage?
Yes. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, so that's Ari Piven's character was based on Ari Emanuel.
There you go. We learn something new every day. But
just to digress for one moment, Ahmed, because of your knowledge and nous in the boxing world and community, where does George Kambosis go from here? Yes, he won a controversial decision. Where does his future lie?
I think George Kambosis needs to go and spend some time with his kids and his wife, look after him, and enjoy the rest of his life. He's done the hard work. He's made the money. He's made a history. He has. He's made history. Yep. He'll be known forever. After his last fight, I think he's just had enough.
He's had enough, or you think he should call it quits?
I think he should call it quits.
Wow. George, I wouldn't say that, but keep punching.
All right, moving on. One of our favourite topics that we talk about on a weekly basis is the coverage of Australian sport by these media outlets. Unfortunately, that's also in decline. I'll hand it over to you.
Oh, is that a handball, is it?
Absolutely.
Hospital handball?
100%. You're the media expert, mate.
Well, I would like to think so, considering it's consumed most of my life. I'm just wondering where News Corp's online platforms, be it the Herald Sun and the Daily Telegraph and the Courier Mail and the Adelaide Advertiser and the West Australian, what are they doing with their online component with live sport? Fairfax, through their mastheads, be it the Age or the Sydney Morning Herald or their other state equivalents, are leading News Corp on an online platform as to live scores. Is News Corp trying to send customers to KO and Foxtel in order to buy subscriptions to watch live sport, or is it a case of dropping the ball? Pardon the pun.
Look, it's going to be like, it would make no sense for them not to send them to KO or Foxtel. Like, why wouldn't they?
Yeah, but is that their strategy? Nobody knows. In terms of 3 months ago, every person I know would go to the Herald Sun for an AFL story, a tennis story, a basketball story, and even an NRL story in Melbourne. And it would be, Collingwood leads Port Adelaide by 5 points with a quarter to go, or, the Giants are beating the Suns, or Richmond is making an enormous comeback against Hawthorn at the MCG. Now, there is so little live coverage, but is this a strategy by News Corp to send us to KO, to send us to Foxtel, or are we going to the Daily Mail or the Age to get our sport coverage?
Oh, look, they're not going to want to send you to the Daily Mail, but I think they pretty much want you to move to their platforms to get their sport coverage, like their sporting platform, because then it makes their job a lot easier, Tones.
One would think so, Ahmed, but the Herald Sun has been the leader in sports broadcasting publication for eons, for 100 years. Now, we don't go there anymore. People don't trust.
What does that tell you, though? What does that tell you, Tones?
The ever-changing face of media is upon us. Is everything going to go to a subscription model? Maybe it is.
There always has to be some sort of element of free, where the consumer.
Yeah, that's a government rule.
Yeah, where even though that's where the consumer is the actual product. That's what consumers don't understand. What I'd love to see from these media organizations is understanding and learning how to use that data as fuel and power and fire to provide more. At the moment, they're so fixated with their subscriptions that as soon as they have a good story, right, it's guaranteed to be behind a paywall, whether it's $1 or $2, whatever it is, it's going to be behind a paywall. And I get it. They're in the business of making money. I totally get it, right? But don't you sit back and think, why are people tuning out? Why are people moving away, right?
From what to what?
From, let's say, the Herald Sun. Let's say...
Well, maybe Lachlan Murdoch wants to take people away from the online component straight into KO. Look, to be honest, if that's his ploy, I think he needs to be more transparent. Lachlan, tell us. Fox News and Fox Sports in America are enormous. I mean, they've got the NFL. They paid billions for. They even paid for the World Cup.
Well,
but in terms of Australia, I think I would like them to be more transparent and say, this is the model we're looking at, and this is where we're driving our customer base to.
So so people get a bit of an understanding of the magnitude of Fox in the US, the halftime ads that Fox has rights to for this NFL Super Bowl, they run at $6 to $7 million for 30 seconds.
Yes,
$6 to $7 million for 30 seconds. They have sold 74% of that inventory, and the NFL is months away from starting. The Super Bowl's next year.
Yeah, of course. And when you know what, and I'm sure our equivalent, the AFL Grand Final, has extraordinary numbers. Maybe that's something that you and I, no, not to that same equivocation, but you and I have a job to do for our viewers and our listeners. We've got to find out what the AFL equivalent is by our next show.
Yeah. The issue with the AFL is there's not enough emphasis on that halftime show because they're so fixated in having that 2 o'clock time slot when everybody knows the evening time slot is going to get you more TV eyeballs?
No, not necessarily.
Tony, this has been a discussion for donkey years, right?
Yeah, Ahmed.
The,
Okay. Well,
the AFL Grand Final that happened in Brisbane, nighttime Grand Final,
yep.
did it break all records or not?
Look, I can't remember from off the top of my head, but I think if you want to make it a twilight game, make it a 3:20 start rather than a 2:30 start. Or
problem is people work, right? Not everyone has the luxury of what's it called. Most footy fans are average people that work, tradesmen, construction. This whole country's built on bloody construction.
Ahmed, you know as well as I do that the majority of Australia will work in the morning on the Saturday of the grand final for those that have to, and then they'll take the rest of the day off to watch the game. And in terms of, whether it be a night grand final, well, do we have to bring the discussion back to the MCG needs a roof so that we can play open and shut and have the halftime entertainment under a roof with lights and darkness?
What is it? What is the difference if it's open or closed?
Well, if it's closed, then you can have. Well, you know what I'm saying? We should be having international acts, like whether it be, Robbie Williams, he was fantastic, or do we have Def Leppard, or do we have Snoop Dogg? We need to think on a grander scale.
Let's pencil this in for next week, and let's keep going with our show, because this is a big conversation. Once I get started here, it's going to be game over. Anyway, moving on. Leo Messi made his debut in Miami. Leo Messi won the game in the 94th minute with a free kick from outside the box. I mean, who would have thought? This guy can't do a thing wrong. Last 12 months have been amazing. Record signings, record attendances, record jersey sellouts. The social value of that clip alone currently is around $1.1 million. Just the social value.
$1
million. The social value of the clip of that goal at the moment in terms of impressions.
Okay.
Right? It's had 54 million views on Twitter alone. Right? So I'm just talking about the social value of that clip on Twitter at the moment is about $1 million.
Wow.
Is about $1.1 million, right? So this guy can't put a foot wrong at the moment. He's gone there. America has woken up to him after that goal. That was a huge goal. Kim Kardashian was there. LeBron James was there. David Beckham was there.
Serena
Williams was there. The one of the founders of YouTube, I can't remember his name, was also there. Alexis, yeah, I think his name is Alexis. There was multiple stars. They had to put in more stables, more stadium, like, are they called stables? No, those big seat things with seats on them.
I know. Yes, I'm not sure.
Yeah, anyway, they had to extend the stadium to try and get a few more thousand seats. I think that they got the number up to about 22,000 because he only usually fits 18,000. So it was crazy atmosphere and fairy tale finish. I mean, who would have thought? Last kick of the game, he wins the game off his own foot. So what a start. Welcome to the USA. What did you see, my man?
I'd say, look, I'm not a huge soccer fan, but for the magnitude of what Leo Messi is doing for Inter Miami in the last 2 weeks is nothing short of amazing. And I mean that in the literal sense. What I put to you prior to coming on air today is Lionel Messi the biggest star on the planet right now?
No.
Who is?
Cristiano Ronaldo.
Despite but it is Cristiano Ronaldo. He is enormous in Europe, but Messi is about to take over the Americas.
How can you be enormous? How can you be bigger than him? He's got 596 million Instagram followers. Messi's got 440 million.
But this is the question that I'm putting to you. Because of your nous in America and European sports, is Messi equal to or greater than that of Cristiano Ronaldo? Is LeBron James bigger? I'm trying to work out in literal terms who is the biggest star on the planet right now.
LeBron James is not bigger. The problem, the thing is with Ronaldo, he moved to the Saudi League, yes. But because the Saudi League has been getting so much attention in recent weeks and recent months. The fact that he's moved there and he got over 40 cable networks from around the world that are tuning into his page, is covering his games. It's gone bonkers. So I think he's still got the edge, in my opinion, from what I can see. LeBron James doesn't come close to Messi and Ronaldo. Messi is just behind him.
All right, say that again, because that was a really good comment. Say that again for our viewers.
I would say, based on the numbers, social media, the world landscape in terms of sport, Cristiano Ronaldo is number one. Messi is just behind him. LeBron James not even close.
Who would LeBron James be number three?
Number three.
What about Novak Djokovic or?
I'd say some of the tennis stars would be ahead of him,
like
Djokovic and Federer.
What, head of LeBron?
Yeah.
Wow, that's a big call.
Yeah, because tennis is an international game, Tones. Soccer is an international game. NBA thinks they're the world, but they aren't. There's still a World Cup every year.
Well, it's a big call. Ahmed El-Hawi on the 25th of July states that Ronaldo, Messi, and Federer or Djokovic will be the top 3 to 4 sportsmen on the planet right now. That's a big call, Ahmed.
Yeah, well, if you look at other sportsmen, Conor McGregor, he's huge.
He is huge.
Who doesn't know Conor in the world?
Yeah, it's a very good point.
And even Habib, right? Even though he's retired, he's a massive name everywhere you go.
Khabib Nurmagomedov.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, no, but he's not in terms of
Nurmagomedov. Sorry.
I thought I said it correctly.
Yeah. Anyway, so I'd say Conor's before James, even though James has got a.
That's a massive call. Massive call.
Again, the UFC is international.
Okay, what about Tom Brady?
They got it all. Well, he's more America, I'd say.
Okay.
Maybe Europe.
All right.
Hardcore sports fans would know Tom Brady, right? So this is the difference. This is what I'm telling you. If you walked up to any regular Australian and you said, "Do you know LeBron James?" What do you think that they would say to you?
Yes.
I don't think so.
Well, maybe you need to get out of Victoria.
Well, I spend more time overseas than here.
What, have they cut the Wi-Fi to Melbourne?
Who?
The state. How could you not know who LeBron James is?
A lot of people would not know.
Well,
but if you told people, do you know who Cristiano Ronaldo is? Just say Ronaldo.
Yeah, no.
Kids as young as 4 or 5 years old know him.
Yeah, well, he's synonymous with being one of the greatest football players of our lifetime.
Exactly. Anyway, let's keep going because we can get stuck in that and keep going on for hours and hours. All right, the big conversation this year is teams playing West Coast. Is that an unfair advantage? My opinion, 100%.
Yeah, this came up. Former AFL champion / current legend Wayne Kerr brought this up in the past 24 hours, and he said teams getting an unfair advantage playing Port Adelaide can lead to a common medal. We saw Charlie Curnow kick 10 goals, 3 on the weekend against West Coast, which takes his tally for this season alone to 19 goals, playing West Coast twice. Now, Kerry also brought up the fact that the Adelaide Crows are due to play West Coast for a second time, and Tex Walker could actually challenge Curnow for the Coleman medal. Is it an unfair advantage? Well, I mean, it would appear so.
I agree. I mean, if you look at Curnow's tally, he's he kicked 19 goals in 2 games against West Coast. What's really boggling my mind is how can a club go from winning a flag in 2018 to being a top contender to just dropping off so quickly? I just don't understand. I love Adam Simpson and all. He was a great North Melbourne champion, being a North Melbourne fan.
Yep.
They've really dropped off. And we can blame injuries until the cows come home, but that is management. That's personnel that you've employed.
Yeah,
I just don't understand this fall from grace. What the hell is going on there?
They've had an enormous injury list, and there's retirements have been forecast and a change at the top was forecast on a AFL football show this week that suggested Adam Simpson would be coaching his last game this year, and the CEO, Trevor Nisbet, would also be moving on. But in regards to their on-field output, it is shocking, to say the least. I don't know what's going on. Maybe they're just playing for draft picks, but they're not even showing any type of enthusiasm and or will to
fight. Yeah, no fight. It's almost like they're bloody tanking. But anyway,
they'll have to step in.
Sorry?
Does the AFL have to step in?
100%. They're the biggest team in the comp in terms of memberships and revenue.
And they ran Western Australia for such a long period of time.
Well, that's what I'm saying, Tones. How can you have your biggest team perform so
poorly?
So poorly, yeah. I mean, it just doesn't make sense.
No, it doesn't, Ahmed. But what is the alternative? What, instead of people like you and I and other commentators saying how much of a debacle this is, well, what can we do about it?
Mate, look at their list. Look at the names. Those names, half of that list there, or like a decent chunk of it, are players who were all Australians a few years back who were struggling to get a kick.
Yeah, Gaff, Darling, Shuey.
Yeah, it just doesn't make sense. How do you go from that to that? Like, how do you drop so far? Yeah. Something's not right.
No,
they're not playing for the coach anymore. It's clear as daylight.
Well, they're not playing for even their own threat.
So when things become really bad, a big change needs to happen to disrupt things. At the moment, they're just going through the motions. Another week, another belting, get paid my $500,000, 700, 800,000, whatever it is, and move on. Who cares? Next. Yeah. Disgusting, in my opinion.
It is.
Anyway, all right, keep going. This one's a big one for our man Tony. So our man Tony's got a ritual. Every Sunday morning he gets up and watches a footy show, the Sunday footy show. Gets up this last week to watch the Sunday footy show, finds a swimming on.
Well, not quite. Let me set the scene. Every Sunday morning, I go for my walk. I get my espresso. I come back home at 10 o'clock on the dot, and I want to turn on the Sunday footy show. It's great entertainment, and I can get my AFL fix with a little bit of humour. This Sunday just gone, I flicked through the TV, 91, Channel 92, 93, 94, 95, all the way up to 99. There's no Sunday footy show.
Tragedy.
It is a tragedy. If you are, if you want to wake up to something and you look forward to it all week and suddenly it's not on without any notice, I was heartbroken. Now, not quite literally, but it stuffed up my Sunday and I didn't know what to do between 10 and 12. And I was so aggrieved at Channel 9's decision not to run the Sunday footy show. I rang Sydney's reception, no answer. I rang Melbourne reception, and a distinguished lady answered the phone and said, "I'm sorry, sir, we're not displaying the Sunday footy show in the northern states this week because we are running the swimming." I said, "Well, that's not good enough." And she said, "Well, our schedule is subject to change. I'm sorry, sir." And I said, "Well, please pass on a message to the CEO, Mike Sneesby, and the head of sport, Brent Williams. This is not good enough." 28 people watch the swimming. 28,000 at the very least would watch the Sunday footy show in Sydney alone. It's not good enough. Channel 9, lift your game.
100%. There you go, ladies and gentlemen. You've all upset him, Channel 9. Make sure it's back next week. Otherwise, you're going to have some big, big problems.
Well, what about Peter Costello lives not far from you in Melbourne, Ahmed? Go and knock on his door and ask him what a silly decision was made and why.
I'll have to go and have a coffee with him, actually.
He's the chairman of the Nine Network. I want to see what's going on. The screen is on the background right now on my television, and to be honest, fantastic for the swimmers, but it's not something that I wait for every week.
I think, and that goes for most sports fans in this country. But anyway, it is what it is. It's happened. Hopefully, it won't happen again, and we have to move on. All right.
One more. I'm going to send an email to Channel 9 requesting an answer and an official response.
And so you should. All right, that brings us to the end of our show. Tony, as I say to you every week, leave us with some wise words.
Well, I've got some wise words. I'm going to leave them for Channel 9 in an email.
All right, everyone. Thank you all very much for tuning in. Thank you, Tony. Take care, everyone. We'll catch you all next week.
Thanks, Harvard. Another great edition of Raw Sports.